Hi. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where real stories cut deeper than fiction. This one. You'll want to hear every word. I was in the kitchen. Third time reheating the same cup of coffee. Not because I needed the caffeine, just didn't want to sit still. The silence in the house had started to feel louder than the noise ever did. You know that kind of silence? Where every creak in the floor feels like it's accusing you of something you didn't do. And then I heard it. The door opened. Keys dropped into the glass bowl by the entryway. Heels clicked once. Twice. She was home. I didn't speak. Not out of anger, I'd already spent that currency. This was something colder. Heavier. I turned slowly, coffee in hand, waiting for her to say something. Anything. But she didn't. She walked right past me. Looked straight ahead. Not a glance. Not even the barest flicker of acknowledgement. That's when I knew. She was gone long before she left the house. You see, I used to think heartbreak was loud. Slamming doors. Screaming matches. Late-night drives with no destination. But I was wrong. It's quiet. It's a pair of eyes that won't meet yours. It's the way someone stops saying your name. It's the smell of a stranger's cologne clinging to a coat that doesn't belong to them. But here's the twist, I wasn't shocked. Not anymore. Because I'd already seen it coming. It started small. Too small to notice, maybe. Her texts became guarded. Her laugh started sounding different. Like it wasn't meant for me anymore. Then came the work dinners. The new dresses. The sudden urge to keep her phone face down. Last Thursday, I called her name 3 times while she was looking at the mirror. She didn't hear me once. And when she did, all she said was, "What?" Like I was an interruption. Like I was static on her playlist. But last night was different. Last night, after she fell asleep, perfectly untouched in our bed, I found her second phone. Hidden in the laundry hamper. Wrapped in an old college hoodie she hadn't worn in years. The messages were there. Hundreds. Threads with a contact saved under M. One of them said, "He still has no clue." I almost feel bad, almost. I didn't rage. I didn't break things. I didn't scream. Instead, I spent the rest of the night planning something else. A reaction she wouldn't expect. Not yelling. Not begging. Not revenge. But something worse, something that would shake the version of me she thought I was. Tomorrow, she'll wake up to silence. Not mine this time. Hers. Because by the time she realizes what's missing, I'll already be gone. And that email? Scheduled. That document? Signed. That box by the door? Packed. You ever see someone ignore you for so long they forget you exist? Good. Let them. Because the day you stop waiting to be seen, is the day they finally notice. The morning started just like every other one, except this time, I wasn't making coffee for 2. I didn't leave a note on the counter, didn't slam any doors, didn't even shut the drawers too hard. I wanted everything to look normal. I wanted her to walk into that kitchen and think it was just another day, just another morning to scroll on her phone and sip from her overpriced travel mug like she hadn't gutted our marriage from the inside out. I'd already transferred what little savings I had to a private account she didn't know existed. I'd emailed my boss at 2:17 a.m. to request 2 weeks of unpaid leave and called in a favor from the only friend who still believed me when I said, "Something's not right with Nadine." My bags? In the trunk. The house keys? Left in the mailbox. The only thing left behind was silence and a manila envelope she wouldn't notice right away, not until she realized she hadn't heard a word from me all morning. At exactly 8:12 a.m., my scheduled email landed in her inbox. And 8:14. She called me. Twice. I didn't answer. I wanted her to sit in that silence. I wanted her to feel how hollow a house becomes when the person you thought would always be there suddenly isn't. But here's the part one didn't plan for, the part that hit harder than I ever expected: she didn't cry. Not in her voicemail. Not in her texts. Not even in the shaky, "Hey, I don't know what this is, but can we talk?" message she left 5 minutes later. Her voice wasn't panicked. It was confused. Like she couldn't comprehend that I, the quiet one, the pushover, the harmless Lowell she dismissed for years, had actually left. Maybe that's what burned the most. Not that she betrayed me, but that she didn't think I'd ever do anything about it. You see, when someone makes you feel invisible for long enough, you begin to believe you don't matter. You shrink. You soften. You doubt your own instincts. That's what I let her do to me. Slowly. Steadily. Until my own reflection looked back at me like a stranger begging for help. I'd become predictable. Routine. The man who said sorry even when I wasn't wrong. The one who over-explained every emotion just to avoid conflict. I was a ghost who still paid the bills and set the alarm each night. But that version of me? I buried him before the sun came up. And the manila envelope? That wasn't just a symbolic gesture. It held copies of messages from her secret phone, printed photos from the night she told me she was out late with her boss, and, perhaps most importantly, a letter. Handwritten. Shaky. Honest. A letter I'd rewritten at least 6 times over the past 2 months. I poured into it everything she ignored: my hurt, my doubts, the cold ache of being married to someone who treats you like background noise. I didn't ask her to apologize. I didn't beg for her to come find me. I just told her that she'd finally gotten what she acted like she wanted all along: space. But this time, real space. Miles of it. Silence so deep she couldn't scroll past it. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good, just a little, to imagine her searching through the house that morning, expecting me to be somewhere in the shadows, only to find a hollow shell where we used to be. But the story doesn't end there. Because when someone loses control of the person they thought they owned, they don't stay confused forever. Eventually, confusion curdles into something worse. By nightfall, Nadine didn't sound puzzled anymore. She sounded angry. And the message she sent me at 9:03 p.m. changed everything. I was sitting in the back of an old rental sedan, parked behind a rundown diner 2 towns over, when the message came through. No, I'm sorry, no, please come home, no admission, no denial, just this. You made your little point. Cute. But if you think you can humiliate me like this and walk away, think again. I read it 3 times before it sank in. No panic in her words. Just ice. Controlled, clipped, and furious. Not at what she had done, but at the fact that I'd dared to interrupt the script she'd written for us. The one where I stayed quiet. Where I stayed home. Where I stayed hers. That's when it hit me harder than the betrayal ever had: Nadine didn't love me. She possessed me. I was furniture in her life, dependable, silent, unmoving. My absence wasn't painful to her, it was inconvenient. But there was something else that made me stop cold: the next line in her message. You're not the only one who can play games, Lowell. It was vague. Purposefully so. But coming from someone who once smiled while telling me she could destroy anyone's reputation with a whisper, it didn't feel empty. And in that moment, my gut did something it hadn't done in months: it spoke up. I started second-guessing everything. Had I left too many digital traces? Would she access my work email? My family's addresses? My old voicemails? She knew where my sister lived. She knew how much I had in my retirement fund. She knew how to lie and look like a saint doing it. I called my buddy Nathan, the one who had helped me disappear that morning, and told him everything. He didn't hesitate. Told me to come to his cabin in the hills. Said I could stay for a while, no questions asked. Nathan had been through his own hell with a manipulative partner, and he didn't need much convincing to know this wasn't just some lover's spat. But driving up into those hills, winding through that thick fog with nothing but headlights and regret to guide me, I realized something else. I wasn't afraid of what Nadine might do. I was afraid of what I might become if I let her pull me back in. You see, when you live for too long with someone who rewrites reality, you start to question your own. You stop trusting your memory, your judgment, your instincts. I'd spent the last 3 years gaslighting myself so effectively that I almost believed I was the problem. And yet, a part of me still wondered what she meant. You're not the only one who can play games. Was she bluffing? Trying to rattle me? Or was she already moving pieces behind the scenes? That night, alone in the creaky guest room of Nathan's cabin, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning like a slow countdown. I checked my phone every 10 minutes, no new messages. Just that one. But my mind wouldn't let it go. She wouldn't just accept this. Not her. Nadine thrived on being in control. And right now, I'd flipped the entire board. By morning, she'd strike back. And she'd aim where it hurt most. But I had one more card to play. One thing she didn't know I knew. One secret I'd held close for months, buried under years of humiliation, until I had the strength to face it. And if she wanted war, then she'd find out the hard way. I wasn't the same man who let her walk past him in silence. Morning came cloaked in fog and the scent of pine wood from Nathan's fireplace. I hadn't slept. My mind wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Nadine sitting in our kitchen, reading and rereading the email I left behind. Not with tears in her eyes, no, that would have been too human. I pictured her face stiff, jaw clenched, flipping her phone onto the counter with that disgusted sigh she used when someone disrupted her narrative. But something told me she wasn't just reading. She was plotting. And sure enough, at exactly 7:08 a.m., my phone buzzed again, not with a message from her this time, but with a fraud alert from my bank. Someone had tried to access my joint account. 3 times. All failed, but the attempt was logged. That was all the confirmation I needed. She'd gone nuclear. Nadine wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to apologize. She was going to burn the ground beneath me, hoping I'd crawl back to her for shade. She wanted to break me financially, emotionally, legally, whatever it took to restore her illusion of control. But what she didn't know, was that I'd been quietly preparing for this. Months ago, during a late night of sitting alone in our garage while she was working overtime, I opened an encrypted folder on my old laptop, one I hadn't touched since our first year of marriage. I started storing everything in it. Screenshots. Email logs. A backup of the GPS data from her second phone. Conversations she had with someone named Tyler, a name that didn't show up on her main phone's contact list at all. I recorded the growing gaps between her lies. I even had a voice memo saved from a night she didn't know I'd come home early, her laugh echoing from the driveway as she whispered to someone in the passenger seat, "Don't worry, he's too soft to ever do anything." I didn't know why I saved it all at the time. Maybe it was just to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my grip on reality. That the knots in my gut were pointing at something real, not just paranoia. But now. Now it was leverage. At 9:22 a.m., I sent her a new message. No threats. No emotion. Just 3 files and a sentence. Before you try anything else, you should know I've been paying attention. She didn't respond for over an hour. When she finally did, it wasn't anger. It was a single line that chilled me more than anything else she'd said. You don't know who you're dealing with, Lowell. And maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't fully understand what kind of person I'd married. But she didn't understand me either, not anymore. Not the version of me who had spent 12 years shrinking just to make space for her ego. Not the version who finally stopped begging for scraps of affection and started reclaiming his own spine. Nathan knocked on the door with a steaming mug and a cautious look in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't know how to answer that. Because the truth was, I wasn't okay. I was unraveling, rebuilding, and barely holding it together all at once. But I looked him in the eye and said something that surprised even me. "I'm done pretending I can fix her." We both knew this wasn't over. Nadine didn't lose without a fight. She didn't let go, she suffocated. But now I had evidence. I had distance. I had someone in my corner. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. Or so I thought. What happened that night, the voicemail, the footage, the twist I never saw coming, changed everything. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one watching. The footage wasn't supposed to be anything. I hadn't even meant to check it that night. It was a relic of a past version of me, the paranoid, quiet man who once bought a cheap, motion-triggered camera during a midnight Amazon spiral after reading some article about infidelity warning signs. I installed it inside the light fixture above our detached garage. Never told anyone. I never even checked the feed after the first week. Until now. I was sitting alone in Nathan's study, rain knocking softly against the windows, laptop open, trying to distract myself from the growing pressure in my chest. I should have been strategizing my next move. Instead, I found myself browsing through the camera folder like it was a photo album of a marriage that never really existed. The camera had auto-archived everything, weeks of nothing but raccoons, rain, and Nadine pulling into the driveway late at night. Same routine, car pulls in, lights off before the garage opens, she gets out, enters the house. But then I found the file from 2 nights before I left. It was different. She didn't get out of the car right away. She was in the driver's seat, lights off, engine still humming. And she wasn't alone. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out first. Dark jacket. Baseball cap pulled low. He didn't face the camera directly, but I could see enough of him to know he wasn't some coworker from accounting. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't holding her hand. He was pacing. Agitated. Nadine stepped out after him, and suddenly, they were arguing. There was no audio, but the body language said enough. She jabbed a finger into his chest. He shook his head. Turned away. She stepped in front of him again, her arms flailing slightly like she was explaining something she hadn't prepared for. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a phone, not her normal one, and showed him something on the screen. He looked. Backed away. And then. He laughed. That was the part that stuck with me. It wasn't joy. It was disbelief. The kind of laugh that says, "You've got to be kidding me." She shoved the phone back into her bag, said something else, then he got back into the car and peeled out of the driveway. She stood there for a full minute afterward, staring at the empty street like she was waiting for him to come back. He didn't. Neither did she, for another 15 minutes. Just stood there. Still. Thinking. When she finally went inside, she didn't even look back at the car. I must have watched the footage 5 times. Each time slower than the last. Trying to read her lips. Trying to identify the man. Trying to understand what I'd just seen. This wasn't just cheating. This was something else. Something layered. Negotiated. A plan that had clearly gone sideways. And for the first time since leaving, I wondered if I'd stumbled into something bigger than betrayal. I copied the clip and sent it to a contact of mine, someone from college who owed me a favor and happened to be pretty skilled with facial recognition and background enhancements. Not exactly legal, but he always kept things quiet. I just wrote. "Who is this guy? Help me out. While I waited, I kept digging through the archives. And then I found something even stranger, a brief, 3-second clip from earlier that day. The car pulled in like normal, but Nadine didn't get out. Instead, she rolled the window down and stared straight at the garage, at the camera. It was dark, but the porch light caught her eyes just enough. She smirked. Like she knew. Like she had known all along. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were cold. Nadine wasn't just trying to erase me. She was performing. And I'd been watching from the front row without realizing the play wasn't for me, it was for someone else entirely. At 2:13 a.m., I got a reply from my college friend. It wasn't a name. It was a question. "Lowell, why is your wife talking to Mason Rigsby?" I stared at the screen. My heart sank. Mason Rigsby was the name of a former client from her firm. One who had been under federal investigation 2 years ago for financial misconduct, blackmail, and witness tampering. And that's when the full weight of it hit me. Nadine wasn't just lying to me. She was using me. And whatever game she'd started was about to spiral way beyond divorce lawyers and deleted messages. The name Mason Rigsby didn't just hit like a gut punch. It dropped through me like a trapdoor. For most people, that name wouldn't mean anything, just another white-collar crook in a suit. But I remembered the news cycle vividly. Back in 2021, Mason had been charged with falsifying investment reports, skimming client funds, and, more notably, coercing people to sign NDAs under pressure. Whispers about blackmail, sealed settlements, and disappearing interns swirled for months before it all suddenly went quiet. Charges dropped. Records sealed. And just like that, he vanished from the headlines like nothing ever happened. I never made the connection to Nadine. Until now. I sat there in Nathan's cabin with a sick feeling crawling across my skin, wondering how long she'd been involved with this man, or worse, working for him. The implications were staggering. I was no longer just dealing with infidelity. This was something else. Something criminal. Maybe even dangerous. I tried to recall anything she might have said about a Mason before, a fundraiser, a board meeting, that conference in New York she flew to alone last spring, but it all bled together in a fog of gaslighting and evasive half-smiles. I thought I was the fool in a marriage. Turns out, I might have been the pawn in something else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I just sat by the window with the camera footage paused on her face, that smirk, so deliberate, so calm. Like she knew exactly what I would find and when. Like she wanted me to find it. But why? Was she warning me off? Or worse, was she trying to bait me? Nathan woke up around 6 and found me still there, eyes bloodshot, coffee untouched. I didn't say much. Just handed him the laptop. He watched the footage silently, jaw tightening as the pieces fell into place. "Dude," he muttered. "You need to go to someone with this." "Who?" I asked. "The cops." "And tell them what?" "That I left my wife because she cheated and now I've got blurry footage of her arguing with a financial felon in my driveway." He nodded slowly. "Fair point. But the truth was, I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there and wait for her next move. She'd already tried to access the bank. She'd already sent that cryptic warning. I didn't know what she was planning, but I knew Nadine well enough to recognize the pattern. She wasn't trying to scare me away. She was setting me up. That morning, I went into town and bought a burner phone. I sent an anonymous message to a freelance investigative reporter I'd once helped during a company data breach years ago. I attached the footage, the financial logs, and a brief note. This woman was married to me. Her name is Nadine. The man in the footage is Mason Rigsby. If you're still in the business of exposing buried stories, look here. I'll send more. Then I logged out. It was a shot in the dark. But I wasn't looking to blow up her life anymore. I just wanted the truth out, somewhere beyond her reach. Somewhere she couldn't erase it with a smile and a well-practiced lie. That evening, just as I returned to the cabin, my burner phone buzzed. No number. No name. Just this text. You're making a mistake, Lowell. Walk away now and I won't have to finish what I started. No punctuation. No warmth. Just pure, calculated threat. And that was the final crack. The last splinter of doubt I had about who Nadine really was, and how far she'd go to keep her world from crumbling. I knew I couldn't stay in the cabin anymore. She'd find me. Or worse, someone else would. Mason had resources. Connections. And now I was a liability in a narrative they clearly wanted buried. So I packed what little I had. Took the laptop. The burner. The files. I hugged Nathan and thanked him for everything. Then I disappeared. No forwarding address. No phone. No trace. At least, that was the plan. But 2 days later, I got a call I never expected, from someone who shouldn't have known where I was, someone who hadn't spoken to me in years. And the first words out of their mouth. Lowell, you need to hear what she said about you. Before it's too late. The call came through a dusty landline phone in a back room of a roadside motel off Route 68, one of those places where the wallpaper peels like sunburned skin and the vending machine only takes quarters that don't exist anymore. I hadn't used my real name to check in. I hadn't logged into any personal accounts. I hadn't even called Nathan since I left the cabin. So when the front desk knocked on my door and said, "There's a call for a Lowell," my blood ran ice cold. I picked up the phone with a breath I didn't know I was holding. The voice on the other end wasn't Nadine's. It was shakier. Familiar in a way that made my stomach twist before the memory even landed. It was Harper, my ex-girlfriend from way back. The one before Nadine. The one I stopped calling after she told me, years ago, that she couldn't compete with someone who makes you feel invisible. Lowell, she said. Just my name. No small talk. We haven't talked in forever, and this is probably insane, but... I got a call from a woman yesterday. She said she was your wife. I froze. She said you were having episodes. That you might show up at my place, and if you did, I should call her. She said you've been unstable. That you're not well. That you're delusional. She even mentioned police. I sat down on the edge of the motel bed, feeling like my legs had lost their bones. She told you I'd come find you? I asked, barely above a whisper. She made it sound like you were dangerous, Lowell. That you were spiraling. Harper paused, and her voice softened. But I knew something was off. I remember how quiet you used to get when someone tried to make you feel crazy. And something about the way she talked, it felt rehearsed. I gripped the phone harder. My knuckles were pale. She's setting me up, I said. I think she already has, Harper replied. And just like that, the web Nadine was weaving became terrifyingly clear. She wasn't just preparing for a messy breakup. She was laying the groundwork for a character assassination. She was building the narrative brick by brick. I was unstable. Unpredictable. A man falling apart at the seams. She'd even circled back to people I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade to plant the seeds. That way, if anything happened to her, or if the truth about Mason leaked, I would be the one no one believed. And in a court of law, character matters. She wasn't trying to fight me anymore. She was trying to erase me. I hung up the phone and paced the room for what felt like hours. Every step felt like I was sinking deeper into cement. It was no longer a question of, if she'd come after me, it was, how. And, how soon. I opened the laptop, searched every corner of my encrypted drive, and began assembling everything into a single folder, messages, time-stamped photos, financial trails, GPS pings, recorded calls, the garage footage, every piece I had. I zipped it, locked it with a password, and uploaded it to 3 cloud locations under separate aliases. Then I wrote an email to my only living uncle, a retired attorney with a paranoid streak, and scheduled it to send automatically in 72 hours unless I cancelled it manually. The message simply said, "If anything happens to me, send this to the press." All of it. It wasn't just insurance. It was survival. But just as I exhaled, thinking maybe, I'd bought myself some time, I saw a new message appear on the burner phone. No number. Just a file. A video. I played it, expecting a recording of me from an old security cam, maybe something designed to rattle me. But what I saw wasn't me. It was her. Nadine, sitting in what looked like a sleek modern office. Not our home. Not her workplace. Somewhere else. She looked calm, radiant, rehearsed. Like she was recording something she'd practiced in the mirror 100 times. And she spoke directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, something terrible has happened. My husband, Lowell, has been struggling for months. He's paranoid. Erratic. And I'm scared." She paused. Bit her lip. Just like she used to when she wanted to seem vulnerable. "If I disappear, or something happens to me, I need people to know." I tried to help him. I didn't finish watching it. I didn't have to. She was getting ahead of the story. She was preparing the world for my fall. But what she didn't know, was that someone else had just come forward. Someone I hadn't even contacted. A name from her past I barely remembered, until they showed up at my motel door with a flash drive in hand and said, "I think Nadine did this to me, too." He said his name was Elliot. He looked exhausted. Like someone who hadn't slept soundly in years. We sat across from each other in that dingy motel room, a single lamp buzzing overhead. He placed the flash drive on the table like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I used to work with her," he said. 3 years ago. She got close to me. Said I was too good for the life I had. Encouraged me to invest in a private fund she was helping manage." He gave a bitter laugh. "It didn't exist. I lost 40 grand. But I couldn't prove anything. And when I tried, she made me look like I'd stalked her. She's good at flipping stories." He opened the flash drive on my laptop and showed me screenshots, long email threads where Nadine was clearly manipulating timelines, forging signatures, moving money through third-party aliases. Documents connected to the same shell company that Mason Rigsby had supposedly shut down a year earlier. But the kicker? There was a voice message. Not meant for Elliot. Not meant for anyone but Mason. It was Nadine. Clear as day. Her voice cold, flat, calculating. "If Lowell finds anything, I'll let him run. Let him play the victim. No one listens to men like that for long. Let him scream. By the time anyone looks, we'll be long gone, and he'll look insane." That was it. No arguing, no context, just raw, unfiltered intent. Elliot leaned back and said, "If you can use that, do it. I'm done hiding." I stayed up the whole night building a secure submission, not to law enforcement, not at first. I sent it to 2 reporters, one advocacy group that supports male victims of manipulation, and finally, to Nadine's employer's legal department. The response was fast. And loud. Within days, internal investigations were opened. Mason Rigsby's name hit the wire again. This time, it wasn't buried. And Nadine? She tried to stay ahead of it, but you can only act like the victim for so long when your own voice is the one pulling strings in the dark. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Honestly, I was just tired. But a different kind of tired. The kind that happens when you finally finish digging yourself out of a hole you didn't even know you were in. Weeks passed. I started walking outside again. Sleeping more than 3 hours a night. I got a new job in a different city under a different name. Harper checked in once, just to say she was proud of me for getting out. Nathan calls every Sunday. And me? I finally started writing again. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Nadine's case is still unfolding. Turns out, Elliot wasn't the only one she tried this with. There were others. People with quieter voices, less evidence, too afraid to come forward, until now. And as for me? I'm okay. Not perfect. But free. And for the first time in a long time, I know who I am again. Thanks for sticking with this story, all the way to the end. If something in it struck a chord, or reminded you of a time you trusted the wrong person, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What moment shocked you the most? This is Reddit Confessions, where every story is real, and sometimes, the quietest voices are the ones with the most to say. Until next time, stay sharp, stay kind, and never ignore your gut.